Hey folks, and welcome to this Twilio tutorial video. Now this is going to be the second video in our series exploring Twilio programmable voice. In the last video, we purchased a phone number and configured it to use Twiml so that we could give our phone number a call and it would respond with some speech. Now today, we are going to move away from the Twilio console and learn how we can interact with Twilio from the comfort of our own code. And by the end of this video, you will have learned how to make calls to the Twilio API from your own code editor. Now we'll be using some of the Twiml that we spoke about in the last video, so make sure you're familiar with those basic concepts. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'd recommend pausing this video and watching the first video in the series. But if you've skipped the first video and are just joining us, you need to have a Twilio phone number and a Twiml bin to pick up where we left off. Now I have one more bit of housekeeping. In today's video, I'll be writing code with JavaScript and running it with Node.js. So to follow along, make sure you have the Node.js runtime installed. I've also dropped links to the equivalent code in C#, Python, Ruby, Java, and even PHP in the description below. So if you prefer any of those languages, feel free to follow those instructions. Now if you're ready, let's get started. Now so far, we've waited until the call comes into Twilio before responding with some Twiml instructions that tell Twilio how to respond. However, what if we wanted to initiate the call? Now, one of my favorite use cases for this was the JavaScript developer Chloe Condon, who actually used this line of code on a timer to create a fake phone call to get her out of socially awkward situations. Sometimes I need one of those myself. But on a more serious note, these few lines of code have powered millions of businesses creating phone calls all around the world. And in just a moment, you can too. For Twilio to initiate a call, we need to give Twilio a set of instructions. Now these must include three crucial pieces of information. We must tell Twilio the phone number that we want to make a phone call to, the phone number that we want to make a phone call from, and some Twiml instructions for Twilio to execute once the phone call has been answered. Now at Twilio, we do our best to make it straightforward for developers to use the tools they're already familiar with. And we have server-side libraries for a variety of programming languages that you can use to help make HTTP requests to the Twilio API. We even have an open API specification if you'd like to adapt it for your own language. Now, since I'll be using Node.js, I'll just head over in my terminal to the project folder I'll be working from. We can install the Twilio Node helper library by simply typing npm install Twilio. Now we can create a new JavaScript file that I'll call index.js and begin to use the Twilio library. First, we will need to authenticate our request using our Twilio credentials. We'll do this using the account SID and auth token from our Twilio account. You can find these on the Twilio console. Next, we'll bring in the Twilio library and authenticate a Twilio client using our account SID and auth token. Now we can use the client to create a call. Remember, we need to specify who our call will be made to. Now this will be the phone number that we want to ring. You can pick your own phone number here. Next, we'll specify where the call will be made from. We can use any Twilio number that we own. I'm going to be using the phone number that I purchased in the first video. Now finally, we need to provide Twilio with a URL that points to some Twiml. In the last video, we created a Twiml bin. Now let's head over to the console and check in on it. You may notice it has a URL and we can use this URL back in our code, linking the instructions we wrote last time to the call we are about to create. And finally, just to make sure that everything is working properly, let's log the SID of the call into the console once that call has been created. Alright, let's pause and test this out. In the terminal, use the command node index.js to execute this code. And if everything works correctly, you should see a call SID pop up and then your phone will start ringing. Pause the video right now and try it yourself. You should receive a phone call from your Twilio number and it should follow the instructions that were specified in the Twiml bin. Go on, pause. I'll wait. Brilliant. Now we can initiate outbound calls from our code. Join us in our next video where we will explore how you can use a web server to create even more dynamic Twiml.